Man, have you guys seen this? I thought I was imagining it. Going through this has made me feel so sick. I've been deep in the research lab. You might have seen the picture. Now, the millions of dollars in fines to punish online misinformation under new draft bill. This is the heading. Now, I did see the particular senator who presented this, and they were citing instances where people were burning 5G towers for whatever reason. I shouldn't laugh, this was actually happening. Now, my problem is if people are going to do things like that and then not submit their point of view toward such new legislation, who's actually winning here? If you all carry on like you're smarter than the politicians, and the politicians are putting forward these crappy bills to be polite, then I hate to tell you, then they're smarter than you. I know there's a lot more of us than there is of them. That's why I always say peacefully and politically we can make these changes. Now why should I care at this point in time? You know? I could just ignore this and hopefully it doesn't affect me in any way, shape or form. I don't think that is going to be the case though. I think they're trying to put forward a restrict act? Now, I'll have to look that one up. If you remember, when was it? About March 7th, 2023, in the US. So, not in Australia, but in the US, they had a Restrict Act. Now, I can't help but think this is a similar sort of legislation, but here in Australia. Because you know what the US does, Australia tends to follow for whatever reason. Now, they're trying to attack the platforms. So just imagine, without getting into the details of, for example, how to actually respond to this. Before we go into that, we will point out some people have noticed, like I have, this could be an issue for the freedom of political speech here in Australia. It even says, you know, complex area, policy, government overreach must be avoided. So again, the government trying to fix the government's problems. Right. That always goes well. Now he goes on to say here in this article, keep Australia safe, dystopian draft bill against misinformation unveiled. It then goes on to say, the proposed legislation could have serious implications for free speech in Australia, says Shadow Communications Minister, Mr. David Coleman. Now, if we have a look at this, just ever so briefly, just imagine, now this was the minister that cited, you know, we have it sounds fine, you know, online safety is a shared responsibility. We will have a role to play in protecting Australians from scams, misinformation, and disinformation, and cyber abuse, etc., etc. So that is a very broad net to cast across all of the internet, which apparently the government now claims to own. And it's not that you or I, as an individual, can make our own minds up. We must be told by the government how and what we must consume. Now, the bill has some limitations. The bill does only cover, funnily enough, it doesn't cover private messages. It does cover a lot of the platforms that you are familiar with, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I'm not sure how it's going to apply to Google itself and search engines. It might even apply to maybe you start your own website and for whatever reason you fall under the net, they don't like what you're saying, you then become a target for the Australian government. They tell you they're going to fine you, and if you don't take it down, then you get more fines and more fines. And then they have a probe into why and how you're doing this. It's very, very Big Brother-esque 1984, as we're all aware. Now, I can imagine this, so I'm hoping I'm verbally explaining this in the same manner in which my mind can comprehend this, because it is opening the gates to very, very broad scope application of censorship to every single thing that exists on the internet except for private messages to be regulated and to be then cracked down on via enforcement through the issuance of fines and or request to have content removed, aka censored, if it is found to be quote unquote or labeled quote unquote misinformation or disinformation. And what do they claim misinformation is? It's extremely broad. Now, disinformation they've claimed, again, this is as per the Have Your Say Open Consultants. Now, this is similar to the tax token mapping exercise and a couple other ones related to digital assets and tax and the like. So it's kind of good that the Australian government does have these papers open, so you're able to actually respond back. It's not a complete communist dictatorship that we currently reside under. No matter how many times you probe and look under more and more rocks, and you find more and more things that make you feel like it actually is, okay? It is quite frustrating. You see, the misinformation they cited here is content that fulfills criteria for misinformation. Okay. And content is disseminated with intent to deceive, including through automated processes, foreign interference. This captures content that is purposely or maliciously disseminated disinformation. Now, how exactly does one prove that? Now, I can understand what they're going for. You know, if some foreign influence is coming in and trying to influence talking points, okay, look into that. You know, do they really need to roll this out against all the people of the country that they're supposed to be protecting? Huh? I'm not so sure that's a well thought out plan. Maybe they want to do it overtly, I'm not sure. But we've got here, what is this? Misinformation. Misinformation is content disseminated using digital service that is false, misleading, or deceptive. Okay. And the content is provided on the digital service to one or more end users in Australia. So it could be a platform like, say, Twitter, Facebook, any online websites that can disseminate information to more than one end user in Australia. So, for instance, if I open up a particular website, post my political points of views on there, and somehow it's labeled, you know, false, misleading, or deceptive, like any of these videos that I upload to YouTube, YouTube can then be like, oh, okay, well, we might fall under the disinformation banner. We have to remove this particular content at the request of the Australian government or receive fines. What are we going to do? You know, that's what this is heading towards. Now, again, that's not censorship, but it feels a lot like censorship. The provision of the content on the digital service is reasonably likely to cause or contribute to serious harm. Okay. Now, pause here. What if, for instance, right, now you are trying to repair your brakes on your vehicle, kind of an important component, right? What if they argue that because they didn't give you the correct torque settings on a particular wheel nut or a particular bolt, that may cause injury in that particular jurisdiction, being Australia, so we request YouTube that you remove all content to do with that, because that could cause harm. Now you can begin to see how this could be applied broadly and basically kill off the free and open. I use those words very loosely because there's a lot of shit that still hasn't come back on Twitter, even though it's supposed to be the free speech platform. There's still a lot of content that has been heavily censored. There's still a lot of individuals that's been heavily censored. YouTube was once all about you, me, I, the individual. It is no longer such that way. It is more about, I don't even know at this point. The content is not to be excluded for misinformation purposes, with that content being content produced in good faith or purpose of entertainment, parody, or satire, professional news content, content authorized by Australian or a state, territory, or local government. So again, you can only get the information from the government. Only get it from professional news content. What if they, for some reason, have it wrong? God forbid you have an opposing voice to that. Isn't media supposed to have opposing point of views? That's how the media was supposed to keep the government in check. But now it's like, no, we're just going along with the whole communist style, you know, not point out anything wrong that the government's doing at all. And if we do decide to do that, we might be labeled as misinformation or disinformation, and we'll get taken off the air, taken off the website, purged from existence. Modern day book burning. Are you fucking kidding me? Now, the content produced for or by an accredited educated provider. Okay, that's fine. The content made in response to the above excludes types of content is not automatically also excluded for misinformation purposes, i.e. comments on professional news articles. Content made in response to the above excludes. So they'll just turn comments off if they really don't want you talking about anything else. Now, what am I trying to say? This types of harm, or hatred against a group in Australian society based on ethnicity, national race, gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, or physical or mental disability. Examples of serious harm. Misinformation about a group of Australians inciting others persons to commit hate crimes against that group. Now, how broad does that have to be? What if you said on a food review that you didn't like, I don't know, Asian food, and then for some reason the algorithm picked up that you didn't like Asian, that's all it picked up, and then you get banned, censored, or fined if you don't remove it, that being the platform, that is. Because you could argue, well, that was a slight hatred towards a nationality and ethnicity. You know? What else? Disruption of public order of society in Australia. Misinformation that encourages or causes people to vandalize critical communications. See, this is the whole 5G thing, right? This is frustrating. Because like I said, the same people that did this, allegedly, reportedly, probably reportedly because we saw towers being burnt. Now, those same people, I hope they are coming in here and they're going to do a response to the communication legislation amendment combating misinformation, disinformation. Because if they don't even have a voice. So all they've done is destroyed some shit. Do they even know what they were destroying? Was it even, was it even a 5G tower? It could have been a fucking radio signal, for all they know. Could have been critical infrastructure for Australia to function, and they've destroyed it, and everyone's cheered. Meanwhile, they've brought about the entrapment of their own civilization. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Harm to the integrity of Australian domestic processes or of Commonwealth, state, territory, or local government institutions. Misinformation undermining the impartiality of an electoral management body ahead of election or referendum. Harm to the health of Australians. Misinformation can cause people to ingest. Oh my god. Harm to the health of Australians. YouTube, I'm reading this out. Do not, if you censor this, it's going to be a rebel. Now, you are saying that misinformation that causes people to ingest or inject bleach products to treat viral infection. Now, how is this preparing for the future if they're talking about misinformation that causes people to ingest bleach products to treat a viral infection? Now, this is arguably cherry-picked. They've gone through and people's actions, right, that they took on, that they acted upon based on the information that they had stumbled across, researched, or heard about, or someone sent out as a joke, possibly. I hope not. Could be. Now, all of a sudden, people are either creating jokes, people are pointing out actual facts, which then gets misconstrued along the way, and the end result is, aka people ingesting bleach products to treat a viral infection. I think I know what they're talking about here. Has resulted in the entrapment of your freedom. Well done people. This is the idiocracy that we're currently living under. Politicians think that we actually need to be told not to inject or ingest bleach products to treat a fucking viral infection. Are you kidding me? And we need the nanny state to come and tell us, "Ooh, don't inject bleach." What IQ level are these people that were ingesting or injecting bleach products? Were they to start off with? This is what I'm saying. Someone might hear information and it might help them achieve enlightenment. Someone might hear that same bit of information, and if they are mentally unwell, if they are mentally unstable, if they don't understand what it is they're reading, it is going to be detrimental to them. Now, I wish YouTube would stop sending me fucking notifications like right now. That would be good. But anyway, yeah, I'll continue on. Now, the misinformation about water-saving measures during a prolonged drought through a major town or city. I haven't heard that one. Now, economic and financial harm to Australians, the economic sector or Australian economy, disinformation by foreign actor targeting local producers in favour of imported goods. Okay, that makes sense, right? How do you think that as a government you are going to be telling the individuals what they can and can't read and how they interpret it? What if people, like I said, what if people no longer, I'm harping on this bit for a bit longer than anticipated because it's just so frustrating that they wanted to treat it in a certain way, right? Now, I need to find it. I'll do it live on stream. Now, I believe they called it responding to fake news. So I will pull it up. And basically, this is the result, I believe, of what it is that we are currently seeing in terms of this bill, this misinformation bill. Now, before I go on, what I'd like to point out here is the international response. So governments have responded to the threat posed by digital disinformation in various ways, including laws against spreading false information, blocking of social media and other online platforms, laws against foreign interference. Yeah, okay. Now, it goes on to explain what it is that they can do. Taking action. This is probably the part where we are currently up to. And I have no idea how that was highlighted in that color. That was very strange. I had not done that. Notice how it's purple? I don't know if you can see that. Anyway. It's either a guiding star or it's here to deceive me, one of the two. Now, what responsibilities do social media companies have for content shared on their sites? Are they platforms or publishers, you know? So this is the whole part. They're trying to say that they are basically platforms and publishing content. If they don't remove it, then they get fined or they get investigated as to where it came from, unless it's private encrypted messages. It says, what are the appropriate mechanisms for ensuring these responsibilities are enforced? Can measures to combat fake news be designed to avoid unintentionally applying it to genuine news? So that is an interesting one, because if you go back to their direct example by people ingesting, of all things, bleach, like ingesting or injecting bleach because someone made a joke about it or they misspoke, that is then deemed fake news because then someone else took the wrong ingredient and then used that ingredient to ingest. Was it tank cleaner, I believe it was? To ingest or inhale or however the fuck they took it, to think that they were killing some virus because of all the panic and fear that was set in place. Thank you to the mainstream media and their reporting, which they won't admit that lockdowns did not work. Lockdowns caused more issues in supply chains, which is being realized only now because people are now able to go back and look at the data that took place, and it's taken them this long to realize these sorts of things. Or maybe not just now, but you know what I'm saying. They needed time to assess the data. And then once they assess the data, what do you get? You get the pile of shit that was served up to you during that period of time. Politicians are dropping out. They refuse to admit that their approach was not the best. They acted with the best information that they had at the time, quote unquote. They are tired and burnt out, quote unquote, and also that they continue the farce where they will tell you that they will not admit on camera to the public that the vaccination does not stop the spread of viruses. It never has for any particular vaccine that I'm aware of that is related to. Excuse me, I'll take that one back. I retract that one. It has never stopped, for instance, the flu vaccination. Okay, I guess I'll be more specific, not so broad. Now, YouTube, you can fact check that one if you like. Again, I'll directly show you a link in a second. And then it says, what role do governments have in developing greater information literacy among citizens? So instead of, here's the key one. What responsibilities of users of social media have in relation to material that they share and consume? Okay, so I don't know you, right, at all. When you come up to me and hand me a flyer and saying, here's the gospel of Jehovah's Witnesses, am I just instantly absolutely sold on what you've told me and I completely convert? Like, I don't think that's happening. If you come up to me and give me some a Muslim conversion kit of some sort, I'm not instantly just converting over. Oh yeah, that must be so true, yeah. Or here's a flyer to why you should sell your house. I'm not just selling my fucking house just because, that's a good idea. Oh, the market's, the pricing's good. Oh, yeah, it's amazing. You think at some point in time you have some responsibility. So if someone gets told that you should sell your house, and then you're dumb enough to sell your house, I'm sorry. You have no one else to... Okay, maybe you could blame the people that tried to approach you. Did you have to believe what they said? This is going full 1984, and the government is telling you can't consume anything that may be misinformation or disinformation in the slightest. This is the concern. And the way they put it doesn't make me feel any better. It makes me feel like you're talking to toddlers here. Now, I've covered that. Now, this is the whole, I believe they mentioned critical in communications infrastructure, vandalized and I'm pretty sure that's what they directly referred to. So because some idiots set these things on fire because of corona conspiracy theorists, The Verge, British 5G towers, British, Australia Mobile, was there any in Australia? One was falsely labelled as a 5G on tower, actually wasn't. Let's have a look. There was one suspicious fire in 2020, okay. Because of that, right? Because of the narrative that whoever is creating these policies, or the politicians themselves, or the minions that sort of gather this information for them, like they might have their own political views, they might have their own takes on the world, maybe they don't like Orange Man, maybe they like the jab, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Other than, what the hell? Fuck out of here. We'll just do a brief testing. Is my internet not working? What's going on? Okay, just the glitch in the matrix. I'm sure that's normal. Especially while you're live streaming, it's wonderful. Now, this article is more than 3 years old. It goes on to say Australian mobile companies work with police to prevent arson attacks. Whether or not, it was a suspicious fire. It goes on to say, it goes on to explain the narrative that was taking place, and therefore the reason. Well, there's actually one in South Australia. Okay. There was a few. But because of this, I would hope the same people who reportedly did this would be responding legally and lawfully, peacefully and politically to the goddamn open response. Have your say, But no, people would much rather burn down fucking random towers than have your fucking say in a political free and open manner. peacefully, politically, legally, and lawfully, you know? The saying. Fucking hell. Now, it just gets me frustrated. It makes me physically sick. Because what I'm worried about is, I am worried about Australia going down the communist regime where the only place you're able to protest in the open, not by burning down critical infrastructure, but say you have a disagreement with a politician's policy, and you can no longer have your say because maybe they've already made their mind up, or because they deem a virus so deadly that there's no questioning the experts, you know? Something like that comes along. Then what are you left with? You're left with this, China's toilet revolution, how activists are hiding messages in protests in public spaces, because that's the only thing they can do. That's the only thing left to do. It's that. Because they're tracked and traced online, they have social credit scores, they have electronic currency, they're told when and where and how they can move. It was proven in some articles, which I might have to pull up because now I've mentioned it, that they were accidentally having their status turned from yellow and red, which is no travel, and it should have been green, okay? Which is just coincidence with the whole movement towards this sort of big brother state that's always watching and always wanting to know what it is you are thinking. Now this might help me here. Okay, paywall. Let's have a look, eh? Okay, this one might help slightly. Wired. So, security news this week, China's police state targets zero COVID protesters. You know, accidentally doxes. Accidentally, yeah, sure. Is this even China's news though? Did you? So I don't know if you guys remember that fire apartment. That fire that took place in that apartment, you know. People were upset about that, and then they couldn't even protest about it because, you know, using facial recognition, phone searches, informants to identify, intimidate, detain those who attend protests. I think from memory, there's a video of people visiting people's houses and beating the crap out of them in front of their kid. I don't want that here in Australia. And I know it sounds silly to compare what we currently have here in Australia with things like this. However, when I see foolish politicians point out the most cherry-picked parts of an entire 3 or 4 years of events and somehow try and condense it down to make a policy to then restrict platforms from hosting content because it may or may not have in the slightest led to particular actions by certain individuals, not by the whole nation, but by a few select individuals who may or may not have been unhinged, you know, who may or may not have been mentally unstable. And then you got to tell me that you got to cram your shit down my throat and be told, or what you're creating might be misinformation, might be disinformation, you can't access this platform, you know, etc., etc., etc. This is the pattern I'm seeing. Now, it doesn't seem like much at the moment, but this is like what turns into a tidal wave later on. If we don't stop and change the timeline now, in the future, we're going to see a tyrannical, I don't even know what to call it, a tyrannical dictatorship led by and powered by AI decisions who will be quote unquote the government What happens if it gets to that point? Then what? Then what? We'll be like, oh, I wish I made, instead of burning down a tower, I wish I actually had my say in the policy to explain that, maybe, just maybe, if we continue on down this path, then all that's going to be left for people to publicly protest is going to be toilet stickers. Because some loon birds burnt down a goddamn tower. Because they heard some fake news. And they couldn't be bothered to engage with people in a legally and lawfully, peacefully and political manner. And so instead we have governments deciding that they can just do what they want, as they want, how they want, when they want, to whoever they want, however they want. You wait. People got sick of being jabbed once. They're like, yeah, okay, once, yeah, twice, yeah, 3, yeah. They're like, what do you mean more than 3? I don't know, just go back and have a look. Did people get frustrated after? Some people might love it. They want it every 6 months. Now they've got the top up narrative. But some people might be like, yeah, we need this top up, right? So while we're on this topic, I'll move this around. This here was pointed out by a leading researcher in Australia, not this one. I'm gonna find it now. Nope, won't show me. Okay, well, this one here, an actual researcher in vaccines pointed out this particular article. Now, risk of corona disease 2019 among those up to date and not up to date on coronavirus 19 vaccination. Now, YouTube, this is a direct article, right? This hasn't been peer-reviewed yet, so should be evaluated and should not be used to guide clinical practice, which I'm not providing because it's not medical advice at all. But what it is saying is the conclusion, since the XBB lineages came dormant, adults not up to date by the CDC definition have a lower risk of COVID-19 than those who are up to date on COVID-19 vaccination, bringing into question the value of the risk classification definition. Now, also among those 48,344 aged working Cleveland Clinic employees, those not up to date on COVID-19 vaccination had a lower risk of COVID-19 than those up to date. The current CBDC definition provides a meaningless classification of risk of COVID-19 in the adult population. So, not also does in this particular article, I guess you could make a mental note that the vaccination never actually stopped the infection or spread of the particular disease. But also, if you're up to date, there was a different outcome than those not up to date in the specific study within the participants who took place in this research. Maybe, just maybe, if the new communication legislation amendment is rolled out, maybe, just maybe, this article, although it might fall under the science and education banner, if I were to talk about this or made an article based on this, maybe, just maybe, people wouldn't listen to the actual facts, and what they would do is deem it misinformation, fake news, or disinformation right off the bat, not allowing this particular talking point to ever see the light of day. That is extremely dangerous. What if they get it wrong? What if there's something so wrong in the future that we diagnose, whether it be medicine, whether it be tech, whether it be a world event, right? And we get it so wrong that we hide it from the public and it changes the fucking future outcome of the entire planet. All because these politicians use their research groups to pull up this finding about a tower. And what is misinformation? What is disinformation? And the article is like, because people took bleach, because people destroyed property, because people incited hate crimes. So let's move on to the next section, right? Here's the next section that really frustrates me. It grinds my gears like Family Guy, right? So if you forget about the ineffectiveness and the utter chaos caused by lockdowns, the confusion given by medical parties in regards to vaccinations, the ongoing requirements for the quote-unquote top-ups for the vaccinations, the now restrict acts in the US, and now the push to combat misinformation and disinformation here in Australia, which basically means cutting down on freedoms of speech. When they say we're not cutting down on freedom of speech, you kind of are, all right? You kind of are, because what you're trying to do is instill in the fact to every single human being in Australia, you got to be careful what you say, because you could get fined, or actually more or less the company that hosts your content could get fined, and then and you don't want that, and that's bad and scary. Woo! It's not healthy to promote this sort of self-censoring in a fucking free and open nation like Australia, all right? Because the next thing that we're going to see is this. Now, I honestly didn't think this was happening here in Australia, but I am incorrect. We're coming for your children. NYC drag merchants chant ominous message at Pride event. Now, I'm sure YouTube, all the drag queens harmlessly meant was we're going to teach them about, I don't know what it is exactly they're teaching here. It says here, LGBT activists at the annual drag march on Friday in New York City shouted troubling messages regarding children across the nation. Again, I don't have anything against gay people or trans people, or whatever the fuck it is. Like they shouldn't have anything against straight people. Like, it's not I don't know what you call it, a civilization war, a class war, an ism war, a sexualization war, a sex war. Sex war. It's not a sex war. But for some reason, when you point out to certain groups of people that you don't want certain things being displayed in front of children, it gets nasty, like real nasty. So what if, here's my real concern. Where does this sit in the misinformation and disinformation? All right? Does this have the potential to hurt others? I would say it could, and that's not to be homophobic. It's like this whole thing with the vote yes or vote no for the recognition of the voice, or whatever the fuck it is. Like, I got more issues paying my bills because fuel's going through the roof, interest rates going through the roof, cost of food is going through the roof. I got nothing left over from the crypto. I got nothing left over to care about anything else. And you're trying to tell me I need to do what now? While this is happening, we are cutting back on my freedom. While you're openly just nude cyclists perform in front of children at Seattle Pride Parade. Huh? This doesn't feel like a healthy nation I'm living in right now. I think our priorities are all out of whack. Now, again, this is a second article, basically a viral video on Sunday. Showed up a group of fully nude cyclists performing in front of children at the LGBTQ Pride Parade in Seattle, Washington. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to play this because it contains full nudity. And quite frankly, if I had a kid and it was boy or girl, I wouldn't be taking them to such events. Now, I can't think of a situation where that would be normalized. Like, can you think of a time where it's like, oh, I'm a dude, so I'm gonna dress up in women's outfit, just like the underwear portion, and then go around in front of a bunch of very young children, male or female, and shake my shit in their face? I'll be like, okay. If I heard that, I'd be like, it's my choice as a parent. You're not going near my child to do that. And also, like, B, why does it want to do that? You know, like, I think that's concerning, you know? Now, I brought that up because, did I close it out? Must have closed. There was basically, here in Australia, so we're kind of, I can't believe we're following the same trend. I don't know how. We have a much smaller population, but somehow we seem to be fitting in what's the word? You know how, like, when Australia basically adopted all of the British law, and they brought with them years and years and years of, like, legal precedents and things like that, so they didn't have to, start from scratch, so to speak. That's why Australia had such a successful, legal system relative to other countries in their beginnings. Basically adopted and inherited a large chunk from the UK British law. Now, what I'm trying to say is it's like a cutout, a carbon cutout, a design, a blueprint, you could say. And the blueprint, for some goddamn reason, we seem to be importing is the fucking drag queen story time here in Australia. Not only that, we seem to be fixated on racial division. We seem to be fixated on what else? The whole virus is going to get us all. Like, we couldn't speak up against that. We couldn't speak up against the racial violence. Somehow, the whole Black Lives Matter Antifa have arrived here in Australia and have the ability to function. I have no idea how. And I sit back and I go, what sort of fantasy land am I living in? And things that were once normal are now seem less normal. And things that were now once strange are now seem normal. So it has here basically this article here. Why has there been such hostility towards the drag community over time? And this individual.
Story time. And drag queen story time is simply a drag queen stepping into a library in a sparkly outfit, reading a story and singing some songs to kids. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So, if that is the case, that's fine. But I won't. If I had kids, I would be like, I have the choice to not send my child there. Why is this being normalized? I just wonder. And to speak out against it all of a sudden, you could be put in the misinformation. You could be put in disinformation. Even though I could be completely opposite and argue that is causing... You could say I'm causing misinformation about a group of Australians inciting other persons to commit hate crimes against that group. Because you could be saying, because you don't like full-grown men dressing up in drag, shaking their stuff in front of little children, you don't think that's morally right, ethically right, then you can say, well, that's misinformation because it is ethically right, it is morally right, and you shouldn't speak out against that. Is that what you're trying to sell me on here, Australian government? Because I really, really would like to have some clarity on that. Now, I might have to put forward a response to this particular, have your say and point out things like that. But whether or not it gets heard, I don't know. But yeah, again, there's more to this. I won't play it all. Simply library, sparkly reading stories. Yep, okay. Art form. It can be an adults only club performance. What do you mean? It can be an adults only. It's in front of little kids. So why? I've heard the argument. Why is this okay? But if you say you want to take strippers to a library, and people would frown upon that? I would assume. Maybe not in this day and age anymore. Maybe it's fine. Maybe you're okay with sending kids, like little kids who shouldn't be subject to that, in front of strippers, like male strippers. There's no biggie, right? No, I don't think so. But is me saying that, is that misinformation now? Because I'm saying that, because I'm not a research outlet, like a university or a media outlet, or it's not for entertainment or satire. Like this, I'm actually thinking this. But I think I'd just be a comedian. And I could just say, look, if I was some weirdo who wanted to be near kids, I'll just dress up and say I'm doing adult kids story time. That's the perfect cover. That's honestly a fucking joke at this point. Oh my god, like, for people not to think about that, I don't know, man. There's just something weird with that. Simple as that. And that's not hating on these people that want to do that. I know that's their lifestyle. They're telling me that they enjoy dressing up in how they want to exist because they feel themselves as a woman and perform What exactly in front of kids? Like, okay, if a dude dresses up as a normal woman and just reads a book, I would be less against that. But why does it have to be in the glitter and not wearing many clothes and dancing and shit? Why? Why? What the fuck are you going after children like this? Again, I must be careful because that could be misinformation. Now, moving on from that, because again, I'm lost for words. As you can hear, a bit stuffed up too. So yeah, anyway. Now, the next thing we have, right, is this. Imagine a country that has censorship up the wazoo and has no longer got cash, because we see $1 billion bank restricts customers to about $667 cash. Withdrawal limit places cap on how much people can spend. Now, this is Australia, right? This is where we're heading. You know, people using their own cash, X amount per day. It's like, okay, that's fine, because you know there's a push toward, there's a sharp decline in number of cash transactions executed throughout the country, right? Okay, cool. That's fine. Again, nothing against banks just outright going to war against crypto and cash, but meanwhile, some of their larger owners, you know, actually opening exchanges and ETFs and shit like that. But then the retail end of it cops like less access to cash. If you got $1 billion hedge fund, it's a different world for you, different existence for your set of rules that you have to play by, because you have large amounts of liquidities, you have higher banks. Now, we see here a push towards no cash. Now, what happens when you have no cash and you're unable to access your money because the whole website goes down? Like what happened today with another bank. It left. It didn't affect me, except for not being able to check an app to see if you have online. That's what I would imagine it would have been like. But imagine though, you have a business you're trying to run and you're trying to, you know, pay people, receive payments. You just can't do it because everything's down. This wonderful world of fucking everything online, but getting rid of cash, but and our systems don't work. Do you have this problem with crypto? Some networks you do. Poleschain, no. You know, some other networks, Solana, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm coming close to, so the voice referendum is the thing I was talking about before. In terms of, I have other things to worry about, you know? The politicians are telling me this voice referendum in the midst of huge economic uncertainty, while men can dress up like women and then shake their shit in front of them, and if you say anything against it, you're hateful, and apparently you technically could be called a misinformation person, inciting hate against other people, even though you're not the person that injected or ingested bleach, even though you're not the person that destroyed vital critical communications infrastructure. You have to fall under the same rulings as them. So it's almost like no matter what you do, the government will have a special rule for you and will place you in this digital pen. And once the digital cash comes in, they're going to close the pen on you so hard, so fast, you're not even going to hear the gate close. It's very frustrating to think in such a negative way that governments are so incompetent that they would do this with the guidance, with the guise of all being for your benefit, for your health, for your protection, for your, you know, own well-being. You know, we're from the government and we're here to help. That is literally what they're saying. But what is it that they're trying to help with? I didn't ask them for any of this, and they're going to try and roll this out on me. And yeah, I'm going to have to push back, and whether or not they even hear it. This is how stuff gets done. There's so much other. Look at this. Minimum classification for game-like content. Fuel efficiency standards. Like, who has time to go through all of these and have your say? I mean, maybe, just maybe, some people in the Hexagon space, but, you know, a different story. Oh, I tell you. Now, in closing, these assholes here sponsored. I'm pretty sure that's not real. Yeah. I reported it. I blocked it. I'm gonna block it because I clicked on that shit, not even realizing. Yeah, I was like, what? I was in shock when I saw that. I clicked on it. That doesn't look like. You know how you check the URL, the URL test. Oh, it's gone. So I'll be doing that, blocking that shit, reporting it, explaining that it's trying to copy this for whatever reason. I hope nothing bad happens from that. But we're seeing here, as I predicted, basically APRs dropping substantially compared to what they once were. It's quite a shame to see, although I did see it happening. All the APRs dropping under 200, even the other APRs dropping under 180. How low will they eventually get if past information is a predictor of future trends? Then it is most likely the outcome that, again, this is not financial advice, that all these APRs are going to drop substantially, which will leave you trying to chase liquidity, which is fine because it's a whale game, and you might have made some insane gains with the INC token and things like that. You might be getting other APR from the INC token itself, like self-compounding, etc., etc. You might be able to build your position, sell your INC to get more tokens that you like. Maybe it's like some other airdrop sacrifice going on. I don't know. Maybe it's like Hex. I don't know. Maybe like PLS, Pulse. I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore, people in the Hexen community. I know what I'm doing, but I know a lot of people don't appear to be doing the polar opposite of staking and burning and minting. Apparently that's not what the cool kids do, Apparently they just take all the profits and tell everyone how they're not. Okay, whatever. So then we see APR, people are going to be chasing it, and what happens if, the Hex APR starts to look more and more attractive? People may discover Hex again, which is funny because it's been around forever, 100% uptime, etc., etc. Meanwhile, banks are actually failing, and banks are like trying to tell you can't actually take your cash out. Which is hilarious. I just find it. Again, why do we think that if we just continue doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to get a different outcome? We just keep doing the same shit, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. I can't figure out why. It's like, have you tried anything different? No. Okay. You want to try the cryptocurrency thing? No. Okay, cool. That's fine. Continue on with your banks. That's fine. And then they're like, "Oh, we'll try something completely different. We'll just be like drag queen story time in front of kids." It's like, hang on, what? Why are we doing that? Okay. Oh, you don't want to try anything different, or because the vaccines are bad. You can't talk about any alternative methods and what actually took place. That's too hard. Governments will never admit they were wrong. And then governments they tend to crack down on their own people, tyrannical. And here in Australia we have open consultations, and that helps you to crack down on your own people, and all in the name of what is it? Because of disruption, because of the harm of integrity, because people might ingest or inject bleach products, seriously, or they might you don't want them destroying like critical infrastructure. I would much rather them like writing to these goddamn open consultation, for fuck's sake. But no, instead we have politicians telling us how we should get top-ups and not to vandalize critical communication towers. Like, seriously, you need to. I already knew this. I already knew not to inject fucking bleach or ingest bleach. I already knew that the water things. I already knew that like foreign actors could be targeting your minds, like, God forbid making, I won't even say it. God forbid. God save us all at this rate. God, if there's a God out there, I know there is, please forgive us for all this nonsense and bullshit that we are doing to the planet, to our minds, to our bodies. I don't think we're going to be able to get through this if we don't, seriously change our ways, because how can we live in a society where we think the people that rule over us think that they need to tell us not to ingest poison into our bodies or to destroy or to commit crimes? It's like we're law-abiding citizens. Why are you treating us like we're not law-abiding citizens? Like, I don't want to end up having to write little public protest messages in a toilet saying free Assange. What happened to him? I love how the Australian government's done so much to get him out. Good work. 10 out of 10 for that effort. It's much easier, to crack down on your own people, to cherry pick a few talking points that probably got pointed out to you by your leftist agenda. Fuck. And then to sit back and say, drag community story time was just harmless. And then banks are like, oh, no jab, no job, no jab. Oh, no cash, no infinite cash for you, even though infinite cash for us. And every now and then, you can't access your money. So just make sure you got enough cash set aside. Oh, wait, you can only take so much out. Oh yeah, and by the way, once we do it, with all the other banks are probably copying. Yeah. Sorry about that. And yeah. Oh, and by the way, this is actually what's happening with some studies, and we're not going to admit that because we as the government would look so weak and unprofessional if we ever actually admit our mistakes in public. So we can't do that. Instead, we can just crack down on your freedoms. And for some reason, people in the cryptocurrency space are picking up on this. It's like a radar signal. It's a big fucking huge oval appearing right in front of us. We're going, hang on. What the fuck is that? No, big, giant, no. Get that shit out of my fucking radar. Fire everything. Meanwhile, yeah, the crypto war wages on. Will people stake? Will people provide liquidity? What will the price of Pulse do? What will the price of PLS6 do? And what will Hex do over the coming years? Now, this is some interesting stuff. I think you should all tune in on this shit, because this might give us the financial freedom that is needed to get over and above all this nonsense that we're seeing. Oh my god. How many times do I need to say this? Freedom of speech concerns brought about by Australia pushing an online misinformation under new draft bill, giving Australia more power over the internet. Because that's what Australia needs. One of the harshest reactors to the COVID-19 lockdowns. I'm pretty sure Melbourne or the state of Victoria was like the worst culprit in that aspect. And studies have shown that the lockdowns directly contributed to the supply chain issues now we are currently experiencing. Now, again, if there's some economists in the audience, they might understand what I'm talking about. If not, then you're going to need to do your research. And if you're in the government, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm just wasting my breath. Now, instead of spending time and money on, cracking down on internet freedoms and vague and open fucking powers that you just decide to rain on all of us, how about you just leave us the fuck alone? How about we're law-abiding citizens, we know what we can and can't do. If anything, why don't you just give us free helicopter money, huh? How about that? That's probably the best thing you can do, because, my taxes pay you. But thanks to your policies, I got stuck with an employer who decided to fuck me, who decided to then roll out some non-mandates against me, and now I have less disposable income right at the time when the rates are going through the fucking roof and the economy is crumbling, and you morons in the government can't even see this coming. Top analysts everywhere are pointing out, when the Fed actually, stops pivoting, when it pauses and it goes from pivoting to pausing, the economy is going to be so wrecked. There's not shit you can do about it, right? You do know that, don't you? But instead, you like to focus on disinformation online and The Voice, and it's like everything possible to divide us all, everything possible to stoke illogical responses. That's honestly what it feels like, just to be able to keep us tired, hungry, and fed up, and exhausted, and sick, and unwell. You don't want us to be empowered. You don't want us to fucking be liberated from this bullshit garbage nonsense that we've gone through over and over and over again. We are literally seeing the decline of people's minds. We are literally seeing the decline of people's morals. We're seeing drag time, story time, for fuck's sake, in front of little children, and we're being told this is normal. And then we're being told we can't have as much cash, and then we're being told every now and then the banks don't give you access to your cash because it's all online. I wish I could say if cryptocurrency fixes all this, but honestly, there's a lot more than cryptocurrency out there going on. Alright, free speech signing out.